Week 2 in the NFL was a wild ride. On Thursday Night Football, the New York Giants seemed to be on the way to a victory against the Washington football team, as Washington missed a potential game-winning field goal, but offsides was called on the Giants, and Washington capitalized on their second chance, defeating the Giants 30-29 on Sunday. Derek Carr and the Las Vegas Raiders once again defeated the AFC heavyweight contending team, this time going into Heinz Field, defeating Ben Roethlisberger and the Pittsburgh Steelers 26-17. Derek Carr was outstanding, throwing for 382 yards and 2 touchdowns. The Dallas Cowboys defeated the Los Angeles Chargers on a game-winning field goal by Greg Zuerlein, 20-17. The Minnesota Vikings, the Arizona Cardinals, went down to the wire as well, as Arizona held on to defeat the Vikings 34-33. Seattle, Washington, a place that seems to be unbeatable. The 12th man finally showed up in full force. It took them 630 days. They were ready to rock and roll and make some noise for the home team. Seattle was up 24-9 against the Tennessee Titans. The Titans seemed to be dead on arrival, but they came storming back to shock Seattle and their fans, defeating the Seahawks 33-30 in overtime. Sunday Night Football, Patrick Mahomes, the Kansas City Chiefs, Lamar Jackson, the Baltimore Ravens, lived up to the hype, and it was a prime-time battle that went down to the final possession as the Ravens held on to defeat Kansas City 36-35. And on Monday Night Football, Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers rebounded from last week's blowout loss against the New Orleans Saints, dispatching the Detroit Lions 35-17. Tonight, our Nation Sports Show recaps Week 2 and previews Week 3 in the NFL. The Nation speaks to you. Next. From the gridiron to the court, talking all that is sports. Members of the Buzzard Open Nation bring to you our Nation Sports Show. Here are your hosts, Ezra Vickery and Stephen Wyand. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that time once again because we are live across YouTube once again for another edition of our Nation Sports Show. I am your host, actually, for this evening, Stephen Wyand. What is going on, everybody? And before we get to tonight's episode of our Nation Sports Show, we have to get the plugging of where you can find us on our social media platforms, on Twitter at @ON_sports show. Facebook.com/Nation Sports Show. And joining me tonight, once again, he is a diehard Washington football team fan. He is the one, the only, Joey Thornton. What is going on, buddy?
Hey, how's it going? How's it going, football fans out there in the world?
Man, I'm ready to talk to you about last week's games in the NFL for week number 2, Electric Boogaloo. And we're going to start it out with your team. As you know, last week, Washington came back in that game against the G-Men, big time strong on the defensive side of the ball and getting it done when it mattered the most on the offensive side of the ball, even all the struggling with the interception. So, my friend, the floor is yours. Give me your thoughts on last week's game with the Giants and Washington.
Oh, boy. Well, I got one word for you. Nail biter. And I have another 2 words for you. Taylor Heinecke. Taylor Heinecke, there is so much I can say about that young kid. I'm telling you, he came into the pros a complete unknown, didn't play for a D1 school, went undrafted in the 2015 NFL draft, but now he stands alone at the top for having the most completions in his first 3 starts in NFL history. Taylor Heinecke, there is so much I can say about that kid. I mean, this is a young man who took the legendary, the one and only Tom Brady to the limit last year in the playoffs. I mean, uh, I'm not saying he's Washington's quarterback of the future, but he's making a strong push to be that guy that we need. I just hope that he can keep it up.
Absolutely. It's just that game was crazy. Like there's like there's I can't even put it into words, with this game, because the Giants had every opportunity to win that game and they blew it. And it could only be the Giants. Even if Daniel Jones had good performances in that game, which he did, he had his struggles with the interceptions and stuff as well. It wasn't a great performing game from both quarterbacks, but Washington got it done because the Giants single-handedly gave the game to them on a silver freaking platter. And it was not.
I gotta say, I wonder how Dexter Lawrence felt after that game.
I know, right?
I bet he was like, why in the world did I jump too soon? Because, I mean,
you know what? He's going to be on. Come on, man.
I mean, the replay showed it plain, clear, and simple. He jumped before the snap was made. Nobody on Washington's side jumped or moved. He was the one that did it. Oh, but man,
yes, he did.
I gotta say, even before I knew about the whole offsides thing, as soon as I saw that kick go up, I was like, oh man, why, Hopkins? Why are you gonna blow us another one? But then I saw the offsides, I was like, okay, we got a chance. And then Hopkins barely drilled that kick inside, and I was like, let's go. Oh man, what a game that was! And
it was a nail biter.
Lead changes. Many lead changes.
Yes. I'm sitting there listening to that game on Westwood One Sports Radio, and I'm sitting there thinking, I bet Joey's losing his mind listening or watching this game because it was crazy. It was a crazy game. I mean, but man, week 2 was insane. I mean, seriously, where do we start? I mean, God, there were some good games this past week. I mean, the Rams had a great game. They ended up winning their game 27-24. Stafford threw 2 touchdowns to Cup. I mean, this is where I think Stafford truly belongs. I mean, Stafford's looking pretty good, where he's at right now in the first 2 weeks. What are your thoughts on the Rams with their second straight win of the season?
I'm going to be honest. I had my doubts about Stafford. I really had my doubts about Stafford.
Interesting.
I mean, I thought that in all of his times in Detroit, I thought Stafford wasn't as good of a quarterback as everybody thought he was. I mean, yeah, he was the number 1 overall pick in the 2008 NFL draft.
Right.
But that was 13 years ago. I mean, Stafford in his previous 13 years with Detroit, I mean, yeah, he had Calvin Megatron Johnson to throw to for a couple years. But ever since Megatron retired, Stafford hasn't had anybody to throw to. He hasn't had anybody to put up consistent numbers. So I mean, I know that the Rams were the winners in the whole Stafford golf trade, and I think I finally starting to see the Matthew Stafford that everybody has been wanting to see. I
Right.
mean, now he has a great running back to hand off to in Darrell Henderson,
Yes.
and he would have Cam Akers if he hadn't gotten injured in the preseason. But he also has Cup to throw to. He has Robert Woods to throw to.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Stafford is really finally starting to prove himself.
Yeah, and when you have great players on both sides of the ball to, it makes his job a lot easier to play the quarterback position. And the Colts, even though they lost this game by 3, but the biggest loss for them during that game was the fact that Carson Wentz once again went down with another injury.
And now we're unsure if he's going to play in this week's game.
Exactly. And, just looking at the scores from this past week, I mean, the Bills absolutely demolished Miami 35-0. It was no competition. I mean, Josh Allen looked really good in this game. The defense showed up finally after last week's loss to Pittsburgh. And just the Bills, they're looking, even though it's one win, but man, they are who we think they are. They beat the team they were supposed to beat in Miami. Miami just struggled, and they had an injury as well at quarterback. I mean, oof.
Yeah, I was actually going to say, I mean, I knew Buffalo was going to win that game at all costs, but Miami would have actually put some points on the scoreboard. I'm not saying they would have won the game because Buffalo was just too good right now, but Miami would have at least put some points on the board had Tua stayed in the game the whole way through.
Yes.
But I mean, yeah, and I know it is Miami, and I know the Buffalo is 1-1 right now. I mean, yeah, they did suffer that heartbreaking loss to Pittsburgh in week 1, but I'm going to go ahead and say, and I know that we're going to talk more about this as the show goes on, but I think one of the biggest games to watch next week is going to be Buffalo and Washington.
Yeah, that's a good point. And just, moving down the scoreboard here, the Patriots whooped up on the Jets. That was no surprise. 25-6. I mean, Matt Jones, man, for 2 weeks in a row as a rookie, he's looking pretty good. Patriots on 1-1, and Jones is looking pretty good. Hey, you know what? I think that, like you said a few weeks ago when you were on the show with us, talking about Matt Jones going to the Patriots, and them cutting Cam Newton, when they got Jones in the draft. I mean, that right there to me was the right move because Matt Jones is a younger quarterback. Cam Newton's a veteran. And plus, Matt Jones is the long-term answer to the Patriots. And right there, it proved it. I mean, the Jets are the Jets. I mean, come on. They're not great. And there was no doubt in my mind they were going to lose that game against the Patriots.
Well, before I say this one particular moment, I want you to dive back into the past just a few years. Do you remember back when Ryan Fitzpatrick was the quarterback of the Jets, and he threw not 1, not 2, not 3.
Wait, is this
not
LeBron
4,
all over again?
Not 5, but 6 interceptions against the Kansas City Chiefs. Do you remember that game?
Man, it's been several years, but I can't remember that game. But now that you said that, it's starting to come back a little bit to me. I mean, that's ugly. That is ugly.
Zach Wilson almost matched that this past Sunday, throwing not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 picks in that one game.
Yes, he did.
Against New England last week.
Man, everybody's like, oh, he's the answer. No, I'm sorry. No, Wilson, he needs to get a lot of reps under his belt as far as he keeps playing like this. They're going to bench him in the next couple of weeks because
Hey, let me stop you right there. The question is if they bench Zach Wilson,
Yeah.
who's going to be the quarterback?
That's a good question. You know what? That's not our problem. That's not my problem. That's our problem. That's the Jets' problem. It's the Jets' problem.
Yep.
They got to deal with it. Deal with it, suckers. Anyways.
Because honestly, other than Wilson, who do the Jets have at quarterback? I'll tell you who. Nobody.
Another game to look at here. Chicago 20-17 over the Cincinnati Bengals. I mean, in this right here, it's a common theme here. Another injury happened in this game. Andy Dalton going out with an injury, and now Justin Fields. I know Ezra was supposed to be here today, but he couldn't make it because he was under the weather last night. So hope you get better there, buddy, and be back here next week ready to rock and roll. But I know Ezra is ready for Justin Fields to take the field as the starter for Chicago this weekend. I mean, but in that game, I mean, the Bears looked a little bit better than Cincinnati did. You know, they showed up and when it mattered the most and in the most important times. But having Dalton going down with that injury, that right there, it hurt him. It hurt him bad. And so we'll have to see how it goes this week. What were your thoughts on the way what are your thoughts on, that game last week? And what are your thoughts on Justin Fields, his first career start with Chicago?
Well, I kind of hate the fact that Andy Dalton had to get hurt against his former team.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, any quarterback can get hurt on any given play. I mean, look back to 2008 when Tom Brady got hit below the knee in the first game of the season
against Kansas City in 2008.
And he was out for the whole year.
Yep.
I mean, it could happen this week. I mean, Patrick Mahomes could try to scramble, and he gets completely rocked by a defender, and he breaks his leg, and he's out for the year. I mean, you never know what could happen in the pros. You never know what can happen.
It's the NFL. You never know what's going to happen in this league. I mean, it can happen to any given player. And speaking of said Tom Brady, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the defending Super Bowl champions, put a spanking on the Atlanta Falcons, 48-25. And I know it was a blowout, but I have one concern for Tampa Bay going forward. It's their defense. Yeah, Tom Brady threw for what? 5 touchdowns? Yeah, he looked great. Looked great in the win. Obviously, he did. But that defense cannot be giving up 25 points. I'm sorry to Atlanta. Atlanta is just they're bound for the lottery this year.
Yeah, I mean, going back to Justin Fields real quick. I know Coach Nagy has said that Dalton is going to be the starter whenever he comes back and is healthy, but this is Fields' chance to go out and prove to Chicago that he belongs there. I mean, they drafted him number 11 overall for a reason.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, this is his opportunity to prove that he is the future in Chicago. Now,
absolutely.
Going back to Atlanta and Tampa Bay. Oh, man. You know what is really, really embarrassing right now for Matt Ryan?
What's that?
He has thrown the same amount of touchdowns to the defense as he has his offense this year.
Good point.
I mean, literally, Matt Ryan threw not 1, but 2 pick sixes to the same guy.
That's a problem.
To the same guy. I mean,
yeah. Another game that's rather interesting here. Philadelphia and San Francisco. And San Francisco has a nice little streak going on themselves. They've had, I believe, 5 consecutive wins on the East Coast time-wise against East Coast teams. 17-11, they beat Philadelphia. And, man, that defense, man, if they stay healthy, they can beat you in any score. 17-11, 17-10, 24-17, 24-21. I mean, It's just one of those games, where the defense really can matter in the big times. I mean, I like San Francisco's chances this year as far as even if they don't make the playoffs later on this year, I think that they're good. If they can stay healthy, they're going to have a good season with Jimmy G and that defense.
Oh, yeah. And not to mention, I mean, you pretty much said it yourself. If they stay healthy. I mean, the 49ers have once again dealing with the injury bug. I mean, Dre Greenlaw is out for a number of weeks. Jason Verrett is out for the whole season. I mean, Raheem Mostert is out for the whole season. Elijah Mitchell, he's battling an ankle issue. Trey Sermon is battling a concussion. JaMychal Hasty is battling some sort of injury. I just hope, I mean, yeah, the Niners are 2-0, but they need to start bringing some players back. I mean, yeah, they still have Nick Bosa and big bad Fred Warner back there, but still, I mean, the Niners can only do so much. I mean, I'm not talking bad about the Niners in any sort of way because I believe in them this year. I think they can have a great season. I think they can go deep into the playoffs if they wanted to. But the Niners just have to put players on the field, and they need to make sure they stay on that field.
Right. That's the most important factor is you have to stay healthy. And if they want to go far, they have to stay healthy, and they got to play consistent football.
Oh, yeah.
But the game that really impressed me the most this past week in week 2 was the Raiders defeating another AFC team, especially a contending team in the Pittsburgh Steelers. Man, Derek Carr was tremendous in this game, throwing 2 touchdowns, 382 yards against Pittsburgh. And man, I tell you, these 2 wins against Baltimore in week 1 and Pittsburgh in week 2, this right here could really help the Raiders' chances at really making the playoffs and people giving them the proper respect at being a contending team.
Yeah, and what's most impressive to me is that the Raiders were able to do that without Josh Jacobs in the backfield.
Absolutely.
I mean, yeah, Derek Carr does have Kenyon Drake back there, but and Kenyon Drake is a great running back. He is. But my personal opinion, he doesn't have or he lacks the star quality that Josh Jacobs has.
Right.
So for Derek Carr to go out and put up those kind of numbers against Pittsburgh's defense, I mean, let's just say the steel curtain is no longer around.
Absolutely. Not even close. I mean,
not even close.
Derek Carr he looks so good right now in these first 2 weeks. He's been pretty consistent for the first 2 weeks, and we'll have to see what happens in week 3. I mean, we'll get down to those games as well and talk about these games after we get through with previewing or recapping week 2, excuse me. And
yeah.
What about this one? Carolina stopped New Orleans 26-7. Yeah, 38-3. Oh, they blew out Green Bay. Second straight week, they looked very mortal. Carolina's defense swarmed that New Orleans offense and made them look putrid. Your thoughts?
Week 1, Jameis Winston goes 14 of 20 for 148 yards. Tosses not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, but 5 touchdowns. Everybody looks at Jameis Winston like he's the best thing since sliced bread. Week 2, he goes up against a Carolina defense that has had its holes and has had its troubles. However, they did what everybody was wanting to do, and that was bring Jameis Winston back down to earth. the Saints only muster 128 total yards. And they absolutely bottle up one of the top running backs in the game today in Alvin Kamara. I mean, they made Alvin Kamara look like an absolute fool in that game. And Carolina's defense, I mean, Carolina all around, they have really impressed me this year.
Mm-hmm.
I thought they were actually going to lose the first 2 games of the season. I thought they were. But Sam Darnold is quickly turning heads.
Yeah,
I mean,
he is.
I'm not saying that Darnold is a great quarterback because
No, not even close.
He's not on the level of a Tom Brady or a Lamar Jackson or a Patrick Mahomes.
Absolutely.
He's not on their level.
Absolutely.
But who would have thought it would take him to get out of New York to finally realize that he has finally decided to wake up and actually play some football?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Who would have thought?
Yeah.
Not me. Not me, that's for sure.
I know. Change the scenery, I think, is really helping out Sam Darnold's stuff right now in Carolina after leaving the Jets. And it's like if you go to the Jets, your career starts to suck. But if you leave the Jets, yay! I see the light. I can finally.
It kind of reminds me of another player.
Who's that?
We kind of just talked about him. His name was Matthew Stafford.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Another game that was interesting Sunday because they got a win finally after losing their first game against Kansas City last week. But that would be the Cleveland Browns, 31-21 over the Houston Texans. And I tell you what, Joey, that 2-headed monster attack and Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb, nobody is stopping that dynamic duo in the AFC, or even better than that, the NFL itself. Because I don't care if your defense is top 5, top 3, top 10, top 20, whatever. You are not going to stop that offense in Cleveland because they have too many weapons. Too many weapons.
They do. And I will say that unless we get a really, really severe setback, we're finally going to see the hopeful reemergence and debut of Odell Beckham this year after tearing his ACL last year.
Yep. Another game from last week that was rather interesting because it was another close game. The Dallas Cowboys, after losing to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in week number 1, get a week 2 victory against the Los Angeles Chargers. And once again, the Chargers lose another close game. This time with a Greg Zuerlein field goal to seal the victory for the Cowboys, 20-17. Man, that was a pretty good game.
It was a good game. Obviously, I would love to see it end the other way around, but nonetheless, it was a good game.
Absolutely.
But I have to ask one very important question.
What's that?
To a certain Dallas Cowboys player. And this certain Dallas Cowboys player goes by the name of Ezekiel Elliott. And my question to him is, when are you finally going to start being the running back that everyone has expected you to be?
Mm-hmm.
Because not only has he struggled yet again this year, he is losing carries to Tony Pollard.
Yes.
Tony Pollard has outplayed Zeke in both weeks this season. So I know Zeke was signed to that monster contract, but if he don't get his act together, he might find himself out of that contract before too long.
Yes. Absolutely. I mean, when you look at that offense, I mean, Dak Prescott has looked very good in the first 2 weeks. But like you said, Elliott has struggled to find his rhythm. And I'm sorry, if you are asking to be paid the big bucks, then you need to be delivering the goods for your football team. And when Ezekiel Elliott was a rookie in 2016, he looked really good. Why? Because he had a chip on his shoulder to prove himself that, yeah, I was a top 5 pick in that draft. Jerry Jones selected me to be the first overall pick in 2016 for the Cowboys. And he was good in 16, good in 18. But he's had his ups and downs in his first 5 years of his career. And if he does not get any better with his carries and his yards, and I would honestly say, Joey, demanding the ball, because Dak Prescott cannot just do it all by himself with all of those receivers and having to rely on that defense.
He can. And the whole thing about Zeke having this big contract and getting paid all this money and not paying it out there on the field, I mean, this is something that is not old in the NFL. We have seen this for so many years happen to so many athletes who get paid all this money, and then come to find out they're just nothing.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean,
and I hate to say it, but one prime example that I'm going to give is when my boys many years ago signed one of the hottest free agents at his time in the NFL, and he turned out to be nothing but a drug-ridden bust. And his name was Albert Hainsworth.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I hate to say it, but it has happened to so many teams. It's happened to so many players. And I just don't know what to say to Zeke. I don't. I mean, he needs to step up his game if he doesn't want to get benched or start losing more carries to Tony Pollard.
Yep. The game that really was also interesting as far as the score itself, because it was a high-scoring game, that would be the Arizona Cardinals and the Minnesota Vikings. That game, that was full of ups and downs. And Murray threw a couple of touchdowns and Cousins threw a couple of touchdowns. It was up and down the field, but it came down to who had the final possession, and Minnesota looked like they had the game in the bag with the game-winning field goal when the dude looked like he kicked it through, and then he just missed it. So, yeah, just to hear Paul Allen's call, it's good. Oh, he missed it. I'm like, dude, I'm sorry, but you experienced another heartache loss for the Vikings. Yeah, just listening to that call on the radio on Sirius XM and just going, oh boy, poor Vikings. Get a better kicker. I know it's in Cleveland here. You'd be like, poor Vikings, poor Minnesota. What were your thoughts on that game between the Vikings and the Cardinals, man? Because that was a crazy game.
Basically, you have two high-powered offenses. One side has Kyler Murray, has DeAndre Hopkins,
yes,
has AJ Green, has Rondale Moore, who is starting to up his game a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And then you got the other side that has Kirk Cousins. It has Dalvin Cook. It has Adam Thielen. I mean, you put two teams together, both with high-powered offenses, and I would say about average on the defensive side for both teams, and you're going to get a high-scoring game. But
absolutely.
Like I said, whenever I was here a couple weeks ago, offense wins games, but defense wins championships. And based on what I saw in that Arizona-Minnesota game, both teams need to step up their defenses, or they're going to be sitting at home yet again this year watching another Super Bowl being played.
And you know, a team that might be sitting at home because of this loss, and this is a huge loss for them. And this to me was the most shocking game as far as winning and losing sequence for week 2. That would be the Seattle Seahawks. 630 days, long days for the 12th man to finally show up and make some noise for the home team against the Tennessee Titans after losing in week 1 and not looking good in week 2. They looked like they were going to be dead in the water in that game. Seattle was up 24-9, 24-9, and they somehow gave the game away. And where do we start here? I mean, let's start with the defense. The defense was absolutely putrid. They were terrible. They gave up nearly 500 yards to Tennessee. And that's not even worse. Derrick Henry in the first half was nothing. He could not get going. In the second half, he had 182 yards and 3 touchdowns on Seattle. Oh, my God. I mean, you know what? They said, oh, the 12th man, best fans in the NFL. Well, your fans might be loud, but your football team has to start producing. And this loss for Seattle, I think, is going to be the story of their season because it can make or break Seattle's chances at making the playoffs. Because Myers, that extra point that he missed was critical, very critical. And that's why Tennessee ended up winning that game 33-30 in overtime. Seattle had multiple chances to win this game, and they blew it in every single facet of the game. Your thoughts on this game?
You know, I just have to say one thing about Seattle. They had better be lucky that even though their defense gave up this game, and even though they have a quarterback who may be on his way out of Seattle after this year, I got to say, if they did not have the hands of Tyler Lockett, I don't know where Seattle would be. I do not know because I got Tyler Lockett on one of my fantasy teams, and let me tell you, that boy has been on fire this year. He has been on fire this year. But Seattle cannot do it with just Russell Wilson, Tyler Lockett, and DK Metcalf. Bobby Wagner is no doubt the leader of that Seattle defense. So he needs to get inside the defensive minds, get inside their heads, and convince them that they are better than what we have been seeing on the field. Because Seattle is starting to look like Atlanta's awful defense from last year when they gave up all of those leads in the second half, more specifically in the fourth quarter. Seattle needs to wake up on defense because I'm not seeing it right now. Nobody is seeing it right now. So they need to get their act together really, really soon.
Absolutely. I mean, this game right here was crazy. I mean, I was so glued to this game because it was the most fascinating game of the week for me. Besides, obviously, we'll get to the Sunday night matchup in a little bit, but that game right there to me with Tennessee, that right there might spark on the other side, how Seattle might have the downfall, but I think that might kickstart Tennessee's season this year. But that big time victory on the road against Seattle, And the next game I want to talk about is the Denver Broncos defeating the Jacksonville Jaguars 23-13. Kevin was on the show last week, and he had a very good point about this Denver team. I mean, their defense is pretty solid, and this might be a team that they might be a sleeper. Nobody's expecting Denver to be, this good, and they might be onto something. Your thoughts on this game?
I will say that Denver is a sleeper. I mean, they have played some good football. They have. However, I am seeing some legitimate concerns on the Jacksonville side of the ball. I am seeing some big time concerns. Concern number one, Trevor Lawrence. I mean, every football fan here knows that Trevor Lawrence was going to lose a regular season game once he got to the pros. Everybody here knows that. However, when you come into the draft as one of the biggest and most top overall QB prospects since Peyton Manning, but yet you step onto the field for 2 games after having a pretty decent preseason, but you throw 5 interceptions in your first 2 games, just like Zach Wilson up in New York. You got to see some concerns there. I mean, Trevor Lawrence is not making a splash. He's barely making a drop of an impression. Trevor Lawrence, I mean, he needs to get his act together. And concern number 2, what was Urban Meyer thinking? Or what is he thinking? This is his first stint as an NFL head coach after having all those amazing seasons in college. He's up here in the pros now, and he made a comment the other day saying how there's a bunch of 4- and 5-star NFL players out there. So it's like he's playing Alabama every week instead of playing a team like Purdue. I mean, Urban, wake up. This is not college football. We have seen a bunch of big name college football coaches who have failed in the NFL. Steve Spurrier, Nick Saban, they have all failed. Both of them have failed when it came to coaching in the pros. But yet they made big names for themselves in college. So Urban, wake up. This is not college ball. You're in the pros. So start acting like it.
Exactly. Exactly. Couldn't have said it better. Couldn't have said it better, my friend. And this game right here, the game that everybody was looking forward to, boy, did it live up to the hype. Kansas City, Baltimore, in Baltimore. And shout out to our very own Christina, the finest cop in Baltimore in the world. Love you, sis. She was at that game. Live and in color. And man, that was a hell of a game. Man, it was insane. All of the injuries, all of the plays that happened in that game, the pick 6 thrown by Jackson, the penalties, the missed assignments on the defensive end, giving up multiple 40-plus yard touchdown passes thrown by Mahomes. Mahomes looked good. He looked really good. Man, that touchdown pass he had to Kelsey, that was a thing of beauty. It was, man. You know, Kelsey, I know he's a tight end, but that dude is like a wide receiver because breaking those tackles that he did, man, he was killing those defenders on Baltimore. And that game, it looked like it was over. Kansas City was up 35-24, and then Baltimore came storming back. And man, John Harbaugh, man, he's got moxie. He going for it. After they took the lead, 2-point conversion goes up 36-35. Man. Oh my goodness. I mean, just balls. He's got balls. And Jackson, man, when they gave that ball back to Patrick and them, I was like, Baltimore, you're leaving too much time on the clock for Mahomes and Kansas City. Just like the Cowboys did in week 1 for Tom Brady in the Bucs. But that came back to, well, the game looked like it was over because Kansas City had the ball in Baltimore territory. And then Leclerc fumbled the ball for the first time for Kansas City. He did not fumble at all for Kansas City last year. Not in the regular season, not even in the playoffs. Playoffs? You kidding me? Playoffs? Yes. He did not fumble at all last year for Kansas City. And he picked the biggest moment of the game to fumble the ball for Kansas City. And I'm like, all right, this game could get interesting right here because if you give the ball back to Mahomes, they still could very well win this game. And, well, again, that's saying he's got balls, referring to Harbaugh. Harbaugh said, no, we're going to go for it on 4th down, 4th and 1. We're going to go for it. And they got the first down. And Kansas City ended up losing that game. Baltimore got the first down, ran out the clock. They won 36-35. Man, that was a great game, man. Lamar Jackson, he struggled at times, but he had a good game. He threw for 239 yards, ran for over 100 yards, and a rushing touchdown. Man, just Jackson, man, I'm really concerned about Lamar this year, man. Even though Kansas City was defeated by Baltimore, and in one of these articles it says slaying the dragon. Well, if they made it in the playoffs again, that might be motivation for Kansas City to come back and beat Baltimore again. I mean, because I don't know. I mean, even though Kansas City's defense did not look good in this game at times, because for the second straight week they had to rely on their offense to win, and that might be one of my concerns for Kansas City. I think Kansas City this year is going to be a top 3 team in the AFC conference, but their defense might be their Achilles heel when in the remainder of the season. What were your thoughts on this game between the Ravens and the Chiefs on Sunday?
You know, ever since Lamar got drafted by Baltimore, and ever since Patrick Mahomes got drafted to Kansas City, they have compared every Baltimore and Kansas City game to the New England versus Indianapolis days.
That's a good point.
In which Tom Brady was on one side, Peyton Manning was on the other side. Ever since those two came into the pros, they have looked at this game as the next future dream matchup between two hot shot quarterbacks. Every time they have played beforehand has not lived up to the hype because Kansas City has blown Baltimore out of the water. I mean, take last year when Kansas City beat them 26-7. That defense for Kansas City made Lamar Jackson look like a little fool. They made him look absolutely selfish. But yet, they scheduled the game again this year. The NFL writers were like, okay, we got Baltimore against Kansas City in week 2. Should we hype up this game or not? And all the NFL writers were like, yeah, I mean, it hasn't lived up to the hype yet. So let's get this game one last hype up to see if they can actually go out and prove that this needs to be a fun game for the ages. And sure enough, it went out. Sure enough, both teams went out and they finally gave us a game worthy of a New England versus Indianapolis showdown. Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes, they left it all out there on the field. Mahomes does every single week. Lamar, not so much, but Lamar really redeemed himself this
He
week.
did. He really did. I mean,
he really redeemed himself. Even after the pick six, he went out and redeemed himself.
He did. And he kept on throwing the ball because, as a quarterback, this being a fan of football, if you're struggling and you throw a pick, especially a pick six, mentally, it can break you. And that did not break Jackson's spirit. And kudos to the kid because he kept on playing through, even though he threw the pick six against Kansas City. But let me ask you this. I think the changing momentum play of the game was the interception thrown by Mahomes in the third quarter. Because, at first it didn't seem like it was going to affect it. But at the same time, when the Ravens capitalized on that interception thrown by Mahomes, that right there to me was kind of, I wouldn't say it was the deciding factor, but it was a contributing factor in them getting back into the game. And they got the touchdown on the Lamar Jackson run. They tried a 2-point conversion, but it failed. But they were down 35-30 at that point. And then obviously Kansas City and them ended up losing the game in the fourth quarter on the touchdown and that's another thing that drove me crazy about that game. That game was so up and down. Baltimore had a 14 plays, took over 8 minutes off the clock. I'm like, what are you doing? Even though they went up 36-35, you're giving Mahomes too much time. But that didn't happen because when Hilaire fumbled the ball, well, then all the doubts went away because Baltimore was able to run out the clock, in that sequence. And the closeout week 2, Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers home for their home opening game against the Detroit Lions, and they redeemed themselves with a 35-17 victory. Rodgers was Rodgers. He looked pretty good. At first, I was like, oh boy, you're letting Detroit hang around. And I'm going to ask you this before I ask you your thoughts on, I'll tell you my opinion on this. I think the play that changed that game was in the second half, at the start of the second half. Detroit looked like they were going to go up again on Green Bay, but that didn't happen. Turnover on downs. That right there really sealed the game for Detroit losing that game to Green Bay. What were your thoughts on the closeout week 2 for Green Bay against Detroit?
When I saw that Detroit had a 3-point lead over Green Bay at halftime, I almost wanted to lose it. Because I was like, okay, you look like absolute fools against the Saints. And now here in your home opener, you're letting a team like Detroit beat you at halftime. I was like, what is going on with this Green Bay team? What is going on with them? But they finally came out in the second half and played like the Green Bay Packers team that everyone has been wanting to see this year. Aaron Rodgers finally woke up out of his week 1 disaster and tossed a few touchdowns. Aaron Jones had him a monster game by catching all 3 of Aaron Rodgers' touchdown passes, well, 3 of his 4 touchdown passes, I should add, and rushing for another one. I mean,
Yep.
The Packers need to have the same mindset every week that they showed in the second half of the Monday night game. And if so, the Packers will make a deep run in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
But they need to have the same mentality. They need to have the same mindset that they showed in the second half against Detroit if they want to go far this season.
Right, because Rodgers threw for 4 touchdowns and Aaron Jones ran for 4 as well. And they pitched a shutout in that second half against Detroit. Like you said, going forward, they have to have that mindset going in for the rest of the way of the season, especially for the rest of the season. Now let's get on to week number 3. And starting tonight on Thursday Night Football, it is the Carolina Panthers at 2-0 versus the Houston Texans. Your thoughts on tonight's game?
Oh, I got to say, based on how the Carolina Panthers defense looks this season, I am just hoping that Texans rookie quarterback Davis Mills can actually make it out of there alive.
Yes,
tonight.
because oh boy, his first career start in the NFL is going against this Carolina defense. Now, yeah, they're not the best defense in the NFL. No. But they're pretty damn good. And they're 2-0 right now for a reason, because of their defense. And Sam Darnold's play.
And
but
the Texans may have Mark Ingram, who's finally making it a splash again in the pros.
Yep.
And they may have Brandon Cooks, but this is a rookie quarterback.
Exactly.
Going up against a somewhat monstrous Carolina defense. I mean, Mills is going to get his head knocked off. I hate to say it, but he's going to get his head knocked off tonight.
I think Carolina's going to win this game pretty soundly. I think they're going to win 27-10. I mean, I do not trust this rookie quarterback for Houston. I mean, this is his first career start. And it's not going to be pretty. It's not going to be pretty. Another game. And now let's get to the Sunday portion of the schedule. We're going to start out first with the Kansas City Chiefs hosting the Los Angeles Chargers. And I think this game could be really good. Up and down the field they go. Justin Herbert, Patrick Mahomes. Both of these offenses are going to score a lot of points. And I think Kansas City is going to rebound after this loss from last week against Baltimore. I think they're going to beat the Chargers in a close one. I say they're going to beat LA 34-20. Oh, no. I'm sorry. 34-31, Kansas City. What are your thoughts on this game?
You remember when I said at the beginning of the season that I thought the Chargers were actually going to make it to the AFC title game this year?
Right.
I'm now starting to regret that, because the Chargers, they have a great team. They have a great offense. They have somewhat of an average defense. But based on what I was reading about the Chargers in the offseason compared to the Chargers that I've seen in this season, nothing has stood out to me. Nothing. Not even Justin has stood out to me like I thought he was going to. So
interesting.
Kansas City is going to have a great season. I mean a great game. Mahomes is going to come out looking for revenge.
Absolutely.
I think this is going to be a much farther apart game than what I was initially planning at this point of the season. I think the Chiefs are going to beat them 34-17.
All right. Up next, we have the Cardinals and the Jaguars. And once again, here's another lopsided victory for Arizona. I think they are going to absolutely destroy Jacksonville. I say 35-14. Your thoughts on this game?
Pure dominance by Arizona. More struggles by Trevor Lawrence is going to lead to a 38-10 drubbing.
All righty then. The next game we have on the build, Chicago against Cleveland. And this game is going to be rather interesting because, as we all know, Justin Fields is the starting quarterback for Chicago. And he's going against that Cleveland Browns defense and that very great Cleveland offense led by that two-headed monster attack of Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb and Baker Mayfield, man, I don't think Chicago stands a chance in hell to defeat Cleveland. I think Cleveland is going to beat Chicago 28-17. Your thoughts on this game?
Isn't it fitting? Isn't it fitting that Justin Fields is going to make his first start in the pros against a team that bears the same state name as the university that he played for? Because he is playing Cleveland, up in Cleveland, which means he's going to be playing in the same state that he played college football in. So it's going to be somewhat of a homecoming for Justin Fields, but knowing how big and bad this Cleveland team is, I see Justin Fields having a decent start, but it's not going to be good enough to beat Cleveland. So that's why I have Cleveland winning this game by a score of 27-13.
All right, we got that out of the way. Yeah, I think this game is going to be. I think it's going to be pretty good. I think it's going to be pretty good. And here's the game. I know we were talking before we went live. Your Washington football team against the Buffalo Bills. And this game, I know you're looking forward to this game because, man, you got that Josh Allen at quarterback for Buffalo and that defense and that offense. Man, I know you're chomping at the bit for this game. How do you think this game is going to go? I'm going to let you go first on this one. How do you think this game is going to go for your Washington football team against Buffalo?
Well, this, in my opinion, is going to be the game of the week. This, in my opinion, is the game of the week because Buffalo and Washington, for years, ever since they met in the 1992 Super Bowl, for years after that, Buffalo and Washington have been the laughingstocks of the pros. And I hate to say that about my boys, but I got to speak the truth here. I am a diehard Washington fan. Always will be a diehard Washington fan. I'm always going to call them the Redskins, whether they're saying that well about them or not. I'm always going to be a diehard fan.
Yep.
This Buffalo team is dangerous. They have Josh Allen at quarterback. They have Stephon Diggs and Cole Beasley at wide receiver.
Mm-hmm.
However, Washington has that defense. Yes, they have had holes this year. They have struggled a little bit this year. Josh Allen may have a field day against the Washington defense, but I want to see the defense show up like it did when they knocked Pittsburgh off their undefeated perch last year. I want to see that defense show up. And I know that Ron Rivera and Jack Del Rio want to see that defense show up. So this is going to be a very close game. But I am going to give the edge to Washington.
Ooh, going with your team.
If the defense can go out and make the plays that they need to make to win this game, it's going to be an absolute shootout. It's going to be an absolute nail biter. So I am calling Washington here 31-28. It's going to come down to a field goal.
You know what, man, you are You are wearing the Washington colors with pride, boy. I tell you what, all due respect, you gave a great take, my friend, but I think Buffalo is going to win this game 28-21. I think it's going to be a pretty good game. I think Buffalo needs to take Washington serious because, well, let's face it, they shouldn't have beat the Giants, but the Giants beat the Giants themselves. But I digress. But this right here could be a rather interesting game. Yeah, so
I'm not going to be butthurt if Buffalo beats us because, like I said, Buffalo is a great team. They have great players. So if they go out and beat Washington, I mean, even if it's a blowout against Washington for Buffalo, I'm not going to get butthurt because I know Buffalo has a great team, just like Washington has an up and coming team. Obviously, I want this to be a nail biter. I really do. But I'm not going to get butthurt if Buffalo beats us. I'm not. Because it is early in the season still.
Next game we got here, the Colts and the Titans. In this game, I am concerned for the Colts because we don't know the status of Carson Wentz right now, and Tennessee coming off that big time victory against Seattle last week. I think Tennessee is going to absolutely seek and destroy the Colts 31-14. Your thoughts?
I agree with you there. Not with the score, but I agree with you. We do not know the status of Carson Wentz going into this game. Based on what I've been seeing, it's not looking good for Carson Wentz to play. Based on what I've been seeing, it is not looking good for him to play this week. So with that being said, Jacob Eason is more than likely going to be the guy to start for Indianapolis. Now, Carson Wentz, I mean, he may pull a rabbit out of his hat and actually play in this game. But with the injury that he has, I don't see him lasting very long if he does play. And finally, seeing that Derrick Henry has woken up and played the football that he was meant to play in the second half of the game last week, I think this is going to be an absolute blowout. I see Tennessee winning 38-10.
38-10. The next game we got is the Patriots and the Saints in Foxborough. And this game is a rather interesting game because you have Matt Jones, obviously at quarterback for the Patriots, and you have the Saints. And the Saints have been a very unique team the first 2 weeks, They blew out Green Bay. They lost the next week against Carolina. And I think the Patriots are going to beat the Saints. I'm going to say 20-10, New England. What do you think?
Well, I just have one thing to ask regarding the outcome of this game.
What's that?
Which New Orleans team is going to show up?
Exactly, because they showed up against Green Bay and won 38-3, and then they show up to Carolina and they lose to the Panthers 26-7.
So yeah, is this going to be the team? I mean, are we going to see the Saints team in which Jameis Winston throws 5 touchdowns
or 5 interceptions,
or are we going to see the Saint? Are we going to see this Saints team that only got or accumulated 128 total yards against Carolina? I'm going to go with the latter. I'm not saying it's going to be that bad. I'm not saying it's going to be that bad at all.
Okay.
But I will say that the Patriots are going to win this one. I'm going to say 24-14.
Ooh. All right. Up next, we have, as your hitting tree would say on his football recaps, this might be the qualification of Tank Bowl. The Atlanta Falcons and the New York Giants. Oh my God, this is going to be a pathetic game. I don't even know where to start with this game because on one hand, I could pick Atlanta, and on the other hand, I could pick the Giants. But help me out here, Joey. I don't know which way to say with this one. You know what? I'll let you go first. Who do you have winning this game between the Giants and the Falcons?
You know, I have 2 words for this game.
Suck it.
Two very, depending on how they're used here, insulting words for this game.
Yes.
Snooze fest.
Just like Monday Night Raw. Oh, did I say that? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, this game is going to be a snooze fest.
Worst game of the week. I'm sorry.
I am going to give the edge to the Giants here because the Giants have more playmakers in Atlanta. And Matt Ryan, dude, you need some help.
Bad.
You need some help. I'm going to say 23-20.
All right. You just made my mind up. The Giants are going to beat Atlanta. I think it's going to be I think Atlanta's going to lose this game to the Giants 17-14. I don't trust these two teams to score a bunch of points.
No,
Next,
I don't either.
Pittsburgh, Cincinnati. And as Belichick would say, on to Cincinnati. But no, they're going to be in Pittsburgh. Sorry, Belichick. I think the Steelers are going to absolute thrash Cincinnati. I think the Steelers are going to beat Cincinnati 38-14. Your thoughts?
I got to say, everybody in Pittsburgh is quietly but quickly revolving their names around a certain Pittsburgh player.
What's that?
And I'm not saying, and it's not Juju, it's not Big Ben, it's not anybody on the defense. The one player that people are starting to get behind really early in Pittsburgh, and I hope that he has a career worthy enough to be the answer that Pittsburgh needs, is Alabama boy Najee Harris. Najee Harris is quickly turning heads. He is quickly turning heads. Now, Big Ben is going to have a decent game. I will say that. I'm actually going to go a little bit closer on this one. I'm going to say 27-20 in favor of Pittsburgh.
Yeah. That's it. That's an interesting score. I just What about this one? Baltimore, Detroit. Yeah, again, another blowout. I think Baltimore is going to beat Detroit pretty badly in this game. I think they're going to beat them 27-10. What are your thoughts?
Detroit, at this point, I feel sorry for y'all. Going up against Aaron Rodgers in week 2, and now going up against Lamar Jackson in week 3. Detroit, I have no hope for you this week. It's going to be 41-10, Baltimore. 41-10.
Ooh, oh
I'm
man.
sorry. I'm sorry, Detroit, but I see no hope for y'all this week.
All right. Yeah, that's not going to be a pretty game. And speaking of said not being a pretty game, the Broncos and the Jets. It's just. I think this is pretty self-explanatory. I think the Broncos are going to absolute crush the Jets 24-3. Oh, it's going to be bad.
So let me ask you a question this week. How many interceptions is Zach Wilson going to throw?
5.
I don't think he's going to throw that many. I see him throwing at least 2, more than likely 3. Denver 27, Jets 6. I'll give him 2 field goals.
Yes, that's gonna be, man. Yeah, Zach Wilson is just he's not gonna do so good in that game. Before we continue to run down with the schedule for you for this week, what is going to be your game of the week? My game of the week probably is going to be, man, I don't know. I mean, if I had to pick, it would probably be Kansas City and the Chargers because of the 2 quarterbacks that are going to be going on the field.
My game of the week is the one that we've already talked about, Buffalo and Washington. I think that's going to be the game of the week. Now, the Monday night game between Philly and Dallas is sure going to turn some heads because right now, Washington, Philly, and Dallas all have 1-1 records. They're both 1-1 to begin this season. However, Washington is in first because of the 1-0 division record. So this game between Philly and Dallas is going to be a good one. And Philly and Dallas, I mean, of course, we'll get to it later, but one of those teams is going to be in a tie for first in the division after this week. So it's going to be interesting to see which one it'll be, but I think Buffalo Washington is my game of the week.
Good point. We got the Raiders and the Dolphins also on the schedule for this week. Vegas, I think, is going to win their 3rd straight game in a row. I think they're going to beat Miami. I think they're going to beat Miami 24-13. What are your thoughts?
No Tua this week for Miami equals no dub for Miami. Oakland's going to beat them 31-7.
Up next, we got the Buccaneers and the Rams. And boy, oh boy. If you like a track meet of offense, this one's for you. Because I do not trust Tampa Bay's offense against the Rams offense. I think it's going to be a great game. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. And I think Tampa Bay is going to – I think they're going to pull this out. I think they're going to win 35-28.
You're right. This is going to be a high-scoring game. Not so much as the 52-49 score that we got between Kansas City and Los Angeles from a couple years ago. It's not going to be that high. However, if Stafford continues to play the ball that he is playing this year, I don't see an upset victory for St. Louis here, but I do see an absolute close one. I am going to say 31-28. No, I take that back. I'm saying 34-31.
All right. Up next, we have the Vikings hosting Seattle. And this right here is a game to me that is very interesting, and it checks off all the boxes because Seattle, after having that back-breaking of the loss to Tennessee last week in overtime, and same thing with Minnesota against Arizona, losing 34-33. This week, these two teams, after losing a game last week, is going to get a win finally again and be at least 2-1. Who do you think is going to win this game? I think it's going to be Seattle. I think I think they're the better team than Minnesota is. I think they're going to win this game. I'm going to say 24. It'll be a close one. I think it's going to be 24-20.
Very interesting. And I really think this is Seattle's chance to win a game.
Absolutely.
This is Seattle's best chance to win a game. Now, I mean, Seattle obviously needs help.
Absolutely.
As does Minnesota on the defensive side of the ball. So you actually took the score right out of my mouth.
Wow. Interesting.
I'm saying 24-20 as well. Seattle.
All right. And for Sunday Night Football, we had the Green Bay Packers taking on the San Francisco 49ers. And boy, oh boy. Oh, I cannot wait for this game. I cannot wait for this game Sunday night, baby, because this right here to me, yeah, it's week 3. But this right here is the team that absolutely got destroyed by San Francisco in the NFC title game in 2019. I think San Francisco once again is going to absolute destroy. Well, I wouldn't say destroyed. No, it's Rodgers we're talking about. But I think San Francisco is going to win this game. I'm going to say, I say San Francisco wins 24-21. What are your thoughts?
Forget what I said about Buffalo and Washington being the game of the week.
Yeah, I figured you were going to go against that. I'm like, how can you pick Buffalo and Washington be the game of the week? But that's beside the point. But yeah, go ahead.
But yeah, forget what I said about Buffalo and Washington being the game of the week. This game is my game of the week.
Yes.
Green Bay and San Francisco. Two teams, both with very rich histories. Both, I would say, also I can say successive histories. Even though San Francisco has far more Super Bowl wins than Green Bay.
Yes.
All because of the arm of the late, or not really the late, but the great Joe Montana.
And the receiving of Jerry Rice.
And the receiving of Jerry Rice. This is going to be a great game.
I think so too.
I really think it is. Now, I want to see the Green Bay Packer team that we saw in the second half of the Monday night game.
Yes.
I want to see that Green Bay Packers team. And if we see that team that played in the second half of that Monday night game, this is no doubt going to be an absolute slugfest.
I think so too. Man, this game has a battle written all over it. It really does.
I think
You're torn, huh? You're torn. I can tell you're torn.
I hate to go against the Bay Area here, but I have to go Green Bay in this game.
Ooh.
I have to go Green Bay. I'm saying 38-28.
Wow. Giving the edge.
I'm saying 38-28 Green Bay.
giving the edge to the Packers. Interesting. Now, let me ask you this. How do you think Aaron Rodgers, performance-wise, is going to do against his San Francisco defense as far as touchdown, interceptions, yards, etc.?
The one player who I think is going to make the biggest impact in this game is not Jimmy Garoppolo.
Okay.
It's not Trey Lance. It's not Deebo Samuel.
Okay.
It's not Devontae Adams. It's not Aaron Rodgers. The one player who's going to make the biggest impact in this game is the other Aaron Jones.
Aaron Jones. Interesting.
Aaron Rodgers, I will say he'll toss for maybe 2 to 3 touchdowns and maybe an interception. But I see Aaron Rodgers rushing for at least 2 scores.
Interesting.
Now, I'm not saying that they're going to be long runs. But it all depends on if the 49ers are going to play that red zone defense that has been so deadly the past number of years. If the 49ers played that red zone defense that I have seen over the past few years, they're going to give Aaron Jones some trouble. They're going to give Aaron Rodgers some trouble. And San Francisco might actually win this game. They just might actually win this game. I'm still giving the edge to Green Bay, though. And my apologies to one of my best bros, Kevin Rory. If you're watching this, I'm sorry, but I got to go Green Bay.
Yeah.
But I will not be surprised if San Francisco does wind up winning.
Absolutely. I mean, San Francisco has a very good chance at defeating Green Bay in this game. And finally, as we also brought it up before, now we're going over it. To close out week 3, for week 3 schedule, you had the Dallas Cowboys and the Philadelphia Eagles. And this game right here is a very interesting game to be because, for one, it's the NFC East, and you don't know which teams are going to show up in these games. It might be Philadelphia, it might be Washington, it might be sometimes the Giants, and it might be Dallas. Dallas on paper is the better football team, but there's a huge but there. Dak Prescott has to show up. Ezekiel Elliott has to show up. Their defense has to show up and not make critical mistakes like they did in the first week against Tampa Bay, which cost them the game. I do think, however, Dallas is going to win this game. I think Dallas is going to win 21-14. I think it's going to be pretty close because, and keep this in mind, again, it's the NFC East. This is not, NFC North versus NFC East. This is NFC East strictly. I think it's going to be a pretty good game. I think both teams are going to struggle at times, but I think Dallas, in the end, if they decide to show up, I think Dallas is going to win this game. Like I said, 21-14. And what are your thoughts?
Let's compare both offenses. On Philadelphia's side, you got Jalen Hurts. You got Miles Sanders. You got Dallas Goedert. You have Devontae Smith. Obviously, those are the 4 biggest playmakers on our Philadelphia offense. Now look on the Dallas side. You have Dak Prescott. You have Ezekiel Elliott. You have Amari Cooper. You have CeeDee Lamb. Those are obviously the four biggest playmakers on that Dallas offense. Now, this game, I think, is going to come down to the wire. This game is going to come down to the wire. And as much as it pains me to say this, and I'm going to try not to mess up, or I'm not going to try to make a mess here, but I think Dallas is going to win this game. Dallas, I mean, it's going to come down to an absolute nail biter. And I see this one being the closest game in week 3.
Ooh, interesting.
I say Dallas is going to win by a score of 24 to 23.
Wow. Or even better. Wow. 24 to 23. You have Dallas defeating Philadelphia. Wow. Whoa. Oh, wow. So, yeah, that is week 3 right there, ladies and gentlemen. Obviously, next week we will be back on the air covering all of week 3, recapping the games and previewing week number 4. And, man, you know, I know we're a sports show, but, man, we have to give mention to last night's AEW show. Man, oh my goodness. Arthur Ashe Stadium was rocking. Over 21,000 people were in attendance. And that first 30 minutes between Bryan Danielson and Kenny Omega was a clinic. That was one of the best wrestling matches, hell, on free TV. It was that good. That good. Both of those wrestlers beat the living shit out of each other in that match. I mean, it was insanely good. Insane. And even though it was a draw, it was perfectly booked. Perfectly booked. And I cannot wait, even though Omega said, yeah, there's going to be no rematch. Yeah, there's going to be a rematch sometime down the line. Maybe it might be at Full Gear in St. Louis in November in 2 months. So, yeah, man, that match last night to open up that show was awesome. Awesome.
I agree with you. I mean, Kenny Omega and Bryan Danielson are no doubt 2 of the biggest stars in AEW. They, along with Christian, CM Punk, Sting.
And Sting still got it. Sting has still got it.
Darby Allin.
Yep, Darby Allin's awesome.
Miro. I mean, AEW is really breaking the ratings of modern day wrestling.
Absolutely. And ever since,
I mean, who can forget the insanely deep personal rivalry that shook AEW for so many weeks between Chris Jericho and MJF?
Yep, that was a great storyline, a great feud.
That was the best storyline that I have ever seen, even better than about 95% of the storylines that I've seen in WWE.
Yeah, right now AEW is just killing it on all cylinders. Ever since they've returned in front of the live audience, in front of an action-packed house on July the 7th in Miami when they started back on the road, and ever since, man, going to Chicago, going, you know, to Chicago all week for All Out. They were in Charlotte on July 28th, and myself and Front Row and Mrs. Front Row and Trenda. We were all there in Charlotte on our feet, And that show flew by so fast. And I'm like, oh my God, it literally feels like I'm a kid again watching professional wrestling. And I'm just so excited that our very own Mongrovian Mike, ay, karate, got to be in attendance last night for that show last night at Arthur Ashe Stadium in New York. Man, that was a hell of a show. I mean, MJF and Brian Pillman Jr., the main event, Ruby Soho and Dr. Britt Baker, DMD. Man, if you didn't believe in Ruby last night before that match, now you better believe, because, man, she was incredible last night with Dr. Britt Baker. And I know this Saturday, the Nation's Corner is going to be live talking about that night, last night for AEW, and also talking about the insane weekend that some of our buddies had. Tony, Trenda, Tony, Trenda, Neil, Deb, Seth, Chad. Fuck Chad. Anyways, Chad and Tony and Trenda, Christina, everybody, man, Mike and Jackie, man, they all got to be down in Philadelphia, and they had a great time with Dave LaGreca, the host of Busted Open, and Bully Ray and Mark Henry. Man, that was just, and Scott was there too. And man, just hearing that story on Monday when Bully was talking about going on, basically running into Scott, taking a shit. He was like, oh, what's going on, Scott? Scott was basically literally shitting himself. Oh, shit. Oh, it's Bully. And he had to literally pull his pants up because he was basically shocked that Bully would just walk in on him taking a dump. So, yeah, Scott, you got on there, buddy. Oh, my goodness. It was a great weekend for those guys. And I know they're going to be on, a lot of them are going to be on Saturday on the Nation's Corner talking about that weekend in Philadelphia and getting to meet, Bully and Mark. And also, Chad got to meet George Napolitano, and man, that was cool, for Chad to finally get to meet George after we interviewed him back in January. Man, Napolitano is so cool. All the photos he's taken over the years for the WWF and, everywhere he's been. I mean, just incredible dude. And I'm glad that Chad got to meet Uncle George. I mean, it was incredible. So incredible. And you can follow the Nation's Corner on Twitter at Nation's Corner, Facebook.com/The Nation's Corner, YouTube.com/The Nation's Corner. And last time I checked, I do believe we're at 140 subscribers on the YouTube page. So please give us a follow, a subscribe on the old YouTube page. Follow us on the Twitter machine, Facebook, everywhere, you name it. We're there talking about professional wrestling. And you can also follow us on Nation Sports Show on Twitter.com/ON_sports show, Facebook.com/Nation Sports Show. We are right now at 77. Last time I checked, 77 subscribers on the YouTube page. We need to get to 100 to get that custom URL. And once again, man, just doing this show, it's been such an awesome time since this show was started up in February. And man, we've had, ever since football has made its return, it's been awesome. I'm glad, Joey, you're a part of this team. I'm glad Kevin Roy is a part of this team. We have such a great cast. Sean and Mitch and Todd and Sam. Just, man, it's been awesome. It's been awesome the last several weeks, especially with now that football is back. And dude, I can't wait for the day when me, you, and Kevin and Ezra get to do a show. Man, that's gonna be cool.
That is going to be epic, and I look forward to talking sports with the three of y'all. I look forward to it.
Oh, absolutely. Me too, brother. Man, like I said, anytime you want to come on this show, you let me know. Man, you let us know. Man, I'm glad you came onto the Discord server, on the Nation's Corner Discord server. And if anybody wants to call into the show, remember, our show is also connected to the Discord server. It's right down there in the description, discord.gg/Nation's Corner. There's a sports topic channel, sports show topics channel. Go inside that channel if you want to make your call about your picks in the NFL, about for this, for the upcoming weeks. You can more than do so. Say, I got a question or a comment. Well, let us know, let you in. And man, it's been awesome. Football is once again for the last several weeks is back. Man, week 3, it's going to be great. Week 4 next week's going to be even better. And man, it's just getting started. Man, before you know it, Joey, December is going to be here. Before you know it, January football is going to be here and the playoffs will be here. So, man, I tell you what, it's going to be a wild ride. We got you covered all season long. And, man, it's great to be a sports fan. And I'm glad that you're a part of this, dude. And that you told me before you wanted to be a part of this and to have fun covering sports. And look what you're doing now, brother, living your dream.
That's right.
But like I said,
yeah.
Go ahead.
Like you said, in the very first show that I was able to be on a few weeks back, I'm going to take that famous quote from Travis Tritt once again, where it's a good day to be alive.
Yes.
It's a great day to be alive, especially if you're a sports fan.
Yes, football, like I said, right now, Carolina and Houston is going on right now, and we will break down that game next week, and we will break down all of the games that happened this week in week 3. There's a lot of great games. Kansas City, Los Angeles, and shout out to our very own RA who is with us here tonight. Him in front row yesterday celebrated a birthday. So happy birthday to those guys. And I know Ari wishes he had a better experience up there at Chili's when they made his steak well done. It should have been medium rare, but I digress. That was bullshit on Chili's part. Do your job, damn it. Quit screwing up on stuff like that. How hard is it to screw up a steak? Even Ari says he can make a better steak than that at home, but I digress. And front row, man, just a great dude, man. He's a positive, fan and a great friend. Ari, you're a great friend to all of us as well. Both of you guys kick ass, and man, and also Sunday during that Kansas City and Los Angeles game, our very own Ashley is going to be at that game, and not just at the game, but this Sunday is Ashley's dirty 30 birthday. So in advance, happy birthday to Ashley. Thank you for being such a great friend to all of us. And man, I hope you have a great time at that game Sunday for your Kansas. I seriously don't know how she balances 2 football teams. It's crazy. She's a Kansas City and Baltimore fan, but I digress. But either way, ladies and gentlemen, follow the Nation's Corner on Twitter at Nation's Corner, Facebook.com/The Nation's Corner, and YouTube.com/The Nation's Corner. You can follow our Nation Sports Show at ON_Sports Show on Twitter and Facebook.com/Nation's Sports Show. Man, it's been a great time tonight, Joey, talking football with you, and we will be back next week talking about week number 3 and previewing week 4 in the NFL. So, and before we go, once again, shout out to Ezra. He was supposed to be here tonight, but he's feeling under the weather. I checked on him earlier. He said he's feeling a little bit better, but still nauseous and not feeling good. So, buddy, kick that stomach bug's ass. Be back here next week in the big boy chair, hosting our Nation Sports Show with us. And man, Joey, I'm glad you had a great time tonight, my buddy. And man, let's go. It's gonna be great. Gonna be great next week.
Let's have at it. And football fans, do us all a favor and watch some football this upcoming weekend, whether it's college or the pros. Go out and watch football like you know you can.
Absolutely. And with that being said, for Joey Thornton, I am Stephen Wyand, and this has been another action-packed edition of our Nation Sports Show. And we will be back next week, like I said, to recap week 3 and preview week 4 in the NFL. Take care, everybody. God bless, and have a great football weekend. Peace. Turn me up.